There's no more time to waste. The NFL season is finally here. Today, I have 7 sleeper wide receivers we need to be targeting in our 2025 fantasy football drafts. Let's hop right into it. I can already hear the comment section now. These first 2 guys aren't sleepers anymore. While their ADPs are rising incredibly right now, I still think we need to be buying them where they're going in drafts. I'm okay taking these guys in the 7th rounds of drafts. I will have some deeper sleepers later in the video, but my first 2 players are Ricky Pearsall and Emeka Egbuka. I get it, they're not going extremely late in drafts anymore, but you can still pick them up anywhere in the 7th round. I'm perfectly okay reaching in the 7th round to get these 2 players. I won't spend too much time on these 2 guys in particular because they are transitioning out of the sleeper category. But Ricky Pearsall in a top 10 projected offense in San Francisco, with every wide receiver in this offense dealing with injuries outside of Ricky Pearsall, I think he's a smash pick in fantasy football this year. For a guy averaging 20 fantasy points per game at the end of the last season in his final 2 contests, that was good for wide receiver 5. A former first-round pick, now he gets a fully healthy offseason to get acquainted in the San Francisco offense where he is the projected number 1 wide receiver. It's a no-brainer pick after round 7 in fantasy. And the story with Emeka Egbuka is pretty similar to Ricky Pearsall. First round draft capital in the 2025 NFL draft. Chris Godwin won't be ready till after week 4 of the season. McMillan dealing with injuries. He's going to be out a majority of the year. It's going to be Mike Evans at 32 years old and Emeka Egbuka in the slot. We saw Chris Godwin as the number 2 wide receiver on a points per game basis last year in this slot role. I think Emeka Egbuka, the all-time leading wide receiver in Ohio State history, he's got a great chance to step into this role from week 1 and not relinquish it. I flipped my stance on Godwin versus Emeka Egbuka. I'm taking Emeka every single time I can in the 7th round, and I think he's going to be ready to roll in week 1 alongside Baker Mayfield. Now we're getting some more legitimate sleeper options at the wide receiver position. I'm going to start with Keon Coleman of the Buffalo Bills. His rookie season didn't go as many people had hoped. For a raw, talented prospect, we necessarily shouldn't have been banking on Keon Coleman to explode in his rookie season. But now you're getting him as the 50th wide receiver off the board, around pick 129 overall in fantasy drafts. For Coleman, who has the potential to be Josh Allen's number 1 wide receiver on the outside. Before Coleman suffered a wrist injury last year, in 6 of his first 8 healthy games, he was either giving you 50 yards receiving or a receiving touchdown. So the guy was showing some signs of life early in the season before he was hampered with injuries. Not to mention, he finished as a top 10 receiver in average depth of target and yards per reception. So the guy is getting targeted down the field with Josh Allen. I think it's a very promising role Coleman has on this Buffalo Bills team. Led the team in red zone targets last year. That is very important to note. We expect this Bills team to increase its passing touchdowns this year with the natural regression of James Cook, 18 rushing touchdowns last year. The guy getting the most targets inside the red zone, I think Keon Coleman has a chance to smash in this Buffalo offense, especially with Khalil Shakir dealing with some ankle injuries. And the only other options at the wide receiver position include Josh Palmer. Keon Coleman, a guy taken in the early 2nd round of the 2024 draft. I think he's got a great chance to return significant value in an offense that is projected to score the most points in the NFL. I want all the Buffalo Bills receivers because one of these guys has got to pay off attached to Josh Allen, and I want to be in on it. My next wide receiver, Rasheed Shaheed for the New Orleans Saints. Yeah, I get it. Nobody wants to draft any players from this New Orleans Saints offense. They're a bottom 5 scoring team this upcoming season. But there are still fantasy points to be had on this team. And Rasheed Shaheed, why would we be drafting Chris Olave 60 picks earlier than Rasheed Shaheed when Shaheed outscored Chris Olave in 4 of the 5 healthy games they played together last year? I get it, Olave's a first-round wide receiver, so the talent's going to boost his draft capital. But Shaheed finished as the 26th wide receiver in fantasy points per game last year, and now he's the 54th wide receiver off the board. The guy was getting you double-digit fantasy points in 4 of his first 5 games, and then he goes down with the injury. For a guy who's playing basically all the snaps with the first team, it's a completely new offense with Kellen Moore. They should look to increase the screen usage of these wide receivers. I think Shaheed may be the most explosive player on this Saints team at this point. A guy that was outplaying Chris Olave from a fantasy perspective last year. Now he's going 60 picks later. It's a no-brainer option. If you're going to take one of these receivers, it's got to be Rasheed Shaheed as the 50th wide receiver off the board when he was producing at a top 30 level last season when healthy. It's going to be pretty much the same story with Cedric Tillman in this Browns offense. Bad offense in Cleveland, But Joe Flacco is the starting quarterback week 1. We know how he likes to throw the football all around the yard. Not as much as Jameis Winston, but still there should be some passing volume in Cleveland. And Cedric Tillman, similar to Shaheed and Olave, he was outscoring Jerry Jeudy when both were on the field healthy together in 2024. Once Amari Cooper was traded from the Cleveland Browns, Cedric Tillman stepped into the starting role and he was playing 90% of the snaps. And that's what we've seen in the preseason. Tillman is running with the first unit almost every single play. And in the first 4 games after Amari Cooper was traded, Cedric Tillman was averaging 16 fantasy points per game while outscoring Jerry Jeudy in 3 of those 4 contests. Then Cedric Tillman goes down with the concussion that keeps him out the remainder of the season for a Browns team that had nothing to play for. But if this Browns offense isn't going to score a lot of points, why am I drafting Jerry Jeudy 100 picks earlier than Cedric Tillman when Tillman was outperforming him when they were on the field together? It doesn't make sense to me. While this Browns offense isn't projected to score many points this year, there is a way that the passing volume is impressive with a guy like Joe Flacco and maybe some impressive rookie quarterback play from either Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders like we saw from Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels last year. There is a potential for Cedric Tillman to provide value in fantasy. And if I'm drafting one of these Browns receivers, it's got to be Cedric Tillman, 100 picks after Jerry Jeudy. Next wide receiver I want to be targeting is Marvin Mims for the Denver Broncos. We saw this Broncos offense overperform in 2024 with rookie quarterback Bo Nix. Under Sean Payton, we shouldn't really be that surprised. He's been leading top offenses his entire career as a head coach in the NFL. We know this Broncos offensive line is one of the best units in the league. And with an elite defense on the other side, this offense is going to have the ball a majority of the time. The number 2 option in this Broncos offense, Marvin Mims, has been playing 100% of the snaps in the preseason with Bo Nix. That's very important to note because Marvin Mims, the only thing holding him back the last couple of seasons has been getting on the football field. His snap share has been nothing too impressive, but once he's on the field, the guy's numbers are incredible. The efficiency metrics off the charts for a guy going this late in drafts. I mean, Marvin Mims was the number 2 wide receiver in all of football in fantasy points per route. He was the number 4 wide receiver in yards per route. And he was the number 7 wide receiver in target rate. So when he's on the field, he's getting targeted nearly 30% of the times the team is running passing plays. That is an incredible statistic. This guy can just get on the field with this Broncos offense. He's going to be a valuable pick in fantasy. And so far in the preseason, we've seen him running 100% of the snaps with Bo Nix in the first team. Cortland Sutton's still going to be the dominant alpha on the outside here. But Marvin Mims, the efficiency is so good, it's hard to ignore this late in drafts. And the Broncos, in the past week, trade Devon Vele to the New Orleans Saints, clearing even more room in this Broncos wide receiver core. Is dealing with a minor injury, but Sean Payton says he should be back at practice soon, which gives me confidence he's going to be able to start the regular season with this Broncos offense we think might build off some of the success they had at the end of the last year with Bo Nix. An ascending young quarterback behind a great offensive line. I'm going to take the number 2 option this cheap in drafts every single time. Marvin Mims is a great pick in fantasy right now. My last sleeper option is going to be Christian Kirk for the Houston Texans. It's not a very exciting pick. I'll be the first to admit it. Everyone wants to look at the young rookie Jaden Higgins on the outside. But Christian Kirk's been a top 36 wide receiver each of the past 3 seasons. Now you're drafting him as wide receiver 58 off the draft board. That's a crazy amount of value for a guy that's going to be the slot wide receiver for CJ Stroud. And let's not forget, last season in this slot role, Stephon Diggs was averaging 15 PPR fantasy points per game. So there's value to be had at this slot role for CJ Stroud. Clearly, Nico Collins is going to be the number 1 target in this offense. But for a Houston Texans team that profiles to be a top 10 passing offense, the last 2 seasons they've been top 12 in passing rate. I don't expect that to change this season. With the complete absence of a run game, Joe Mixon might not play this season. And Nick Chubb, well, the reports about Nick Chubb obviously have not been great. So we might not have any sort of run game in Houston. So they're going to have to be passing the ball over and over and over again. And I think a slot option in Christian Kirk, we've seen CJ Stroud loves targeting Nico Collins and this slot wide receiver. If Stephon Diggs at age 30 is able to produce, I think Christian Kirk can slide into a role and give us a very high floor in fantasy football. For a Texans team, we expect to pass a lot this upcoming season. But those are my 7 wide receiver sleepers. We started with 2 higher price guys right now. They might be more league-winning breakout candidates than sleeper options at this point. But we started with Ricky Pearsall and Emeka Egbuka for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then we got into some more sleeper candidates with Keon Coleman in a top Buffalo Bills offense. Rasheed Shaheed, we expect to outperform Chris Olave, and he's going 60 picks after him. Same deal with Cedric Tillman. Going to be a bad offense, but why am I taking him 100 picks behind Jerry Jeudy when he outperformed him when on the field together? And then we followed it with Marvin Mims and Christian Kirk. 2 wide receiver 2s in their offense, but I think they have a chance to give us some pretty significant fantasy value considering what we've seen from them in the past on a per route basis. Those are going to be my 7 wide receiver sleepers for 2025 fantasy football. Let me know what you think of these guys. If you agree or disagree, drop your sleepers in the comment section. We'll see who you guys are drafting late that you expect to have league winning value. That's going to do it here for the Fantasy Birds. Thank you guys for watching. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more fantasy football content. Till then, we'll see you next time with the Fantasy Birds.